We will be doing a Socratic discussion on A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And it's kind of like the first Latin American piece of literature that we're doing for AP Lit. And we've been playing with the genre of classics as like the fallen hero. And here we're entering magical realism, where we're going to push the boundaries of, is this really, the second half of the title is called A Tale for Children. And so we're going to push that boundary as far as genres go. I think one of the bigger scopes for AP literature is not only just, have a passing score for the AP exam, but also to connect with classic literature pieces as how it relates to our life, making the human connection. So that's the bigger essential question, is how is something that old or outdated or no action-packed film made of this classic, how is that relevant to our society now? So that's always been our bigger scope. How it fits in the learning objectives or the learning outcomes is that students have to have be willing to take a closer look at literature. So it requires them to read closer, to read critically, which is why I love the Socratic discussions, because it's an active learning. Before A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings, they just did Ernest Hemingway's short fiction piece, Hills Like White Elephant, where it's a story that has no action. It's all conversation and dialogue, and yet the conflict has to be read closely between the lines. And so seeing how they tie that narrative technique in this next short fiction piece will be very interesting to see how closely they read into the magical realism aspects and the implication. Is this man with wings, is it a biblical religious figure? And how does it exceed or disappoint our expectation? So part of it, I check previous to the discussion, I check whether students have read and posted the questions, because it's not like you can just turn to the back of a book and look for answers. So they'll have to have read it in order to come up or pose the questions. So that's part of checking for assessment. We also have the students take turns taking notes of the discussion. So that's a way for me to check collectively as a group. Are they missing any of the universal themes? Or are there some questions that we can relate back to the previous reading assignments or the other bigger pieces of literature? And then if I feel like they still have questions or they have extremely strong opinions one way or other, they can't hold space to just contemplate another person's opinion, then I will have them try to voice it out with an individual, like a one-sentence assignment, which they always find challenging. So the one-sentence assignment is to write the MOL and a thesis statement as they would in an AP prompt exam. So the MOL is the meaning of the work as a whole. And so the equation is that they have to pick one specific image or one phrase from the text and use that to direct themselves towards, well, what was the meaning or the purpose of the short story? And then come up with a thesis that focuses on literary devices, like narrative point of view or imagery or symbolism to help support that opinion. And so they always find this one sentence assignment very difficult. So yeah, developing the culture for learning. I think that's probably what I do best, sometimes, maybe. Setting the expectations. So for the Socratic discussion, the students are reminded that it's not a debate. And I think that's good, because so many times, like when you read certain forums or articles online, it takes 4 replies before it becomes a personal attack, right? and to have the students be able to suspend their belief, to just contemplate another person's opinion is truly important, I believe. So we set that expectation up, the pausing, the acknowledging that person's point of view or try to summarize what they say before just introducing your point. They don't always do it, and so sometimes I'll have to interject just to keep that expectation. So I set up the course where they have levels of questions. So level 1 question is something that's the answer is found within the text. A level 2 question is more like an inference. It's not directly stated, but you can kind of figure out why Cinderella's stepmom might be jealous of her. And level 3 questions are what we call helicopter questions, where it hovers above or outside the text. So maybe talking about true love in Cinderella. Is there love at first sight? What are women's rights? What were their rights during that time? Or were there only options to be married? And so those are level 3 questions. So the questions are prompted from the students. And so before they come into class, they have to use a quote from this text. And they have to post 3 level 1, 3 level 2, 3 level 3 questions to our online class. So it's a discussion board where they can see everyone's questions and come prepared, already thinking about these questions and how will they bring that to the table to discuss. Not debate, discuss. I used to think, I wish every class was a Socratic discussion. I mean, it's not about me bringing knowledge and just being like a little skinny straw and says, here it is. But when you have the Socratic discussion, you hear so many options and possibilities and voices, and you can see their minds kind of turning over all these possibilities, conspiracy theories. We have everything out there, and no thought is wrong, but we also have to then say, well, where's the evidence? What are you basing this on? So let's go back to the text. So is it engaging? Highly. And I don't think 100% of your classes could be Socratic discussions, because at some point, they do need terminology. They do need you to model how you deconstruct something. So that takes place with our small group discussions and their presentations. I think for the students, it's not so much the content of the story, but for each one of them, when we have these Socratic discussions, they're always like, wow, that was great. That was like the best lesson we had every time we have a Socratic discussion. And the being able to lean on each other to help deconstruct the meaning of a text builds their self-confidence. So I think that's probably the most important thing that they get out of reading these or challenging themselves with reading these difficult texts.